Hello, everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FMTraining.tv, where every day at this time slot, we're doing great FileMaker training with the Claris FileMaker platform. We're very excited about that. So with that in mind, I want to welcome Doug Wallis, he was telling me about his new role at Claris, but he's like a developer evangelism person that was crossbred with a product manager and a salesperson. So what do we call that?
You can call it whatever you want to call it.
But
I
you're an advocate, right? I mean, you're a product manager and you're an
That
advocate.
is the thing. So the thing is, yeah, the word basically that we kind of use, I think, even telling with Nepal is evangelist. I know in some countries it doesn't sort of sounds cool, but basically that's what I'll be doing forward. Essentially it's making sure that people outside of Claris actually get the message on what we work on, what we're going to release, what we're doing it, and on the other side is to make sure that internally within Claris we do understand what our customer needs, which direction we should be going, and what are the problems or the issues that might be caused by whatever we create. So the idea is to amplify communication across between Claris and our users.
Cool. Cool, cool. That's me clapping for positive things you're saying. I agree. I loved all that. That was wonderful. All right. So today is about FileMaker 21, should be 24, 21. It's version 21, released in the year 24. And this is the .1 release. So let's go through that. What is that?
Yeah,
What is it and why should we care, Doug? We always ask people that. Why are you
yeah.
here and why should we care?
So it's the FileMaker 2024 update. So the product version is going to be 21.1. It's got other numbers in the back. Doesn't really matter much. It's 45, I think, for Pro and 44 for server. Basically, it's part of our sort of vision to actually sort of be able to actually provide updates throughout the year when we have either bug fixes or we've actually done improvements. So even though we call this .1 release a minor update, there's a lot of stuff that we actually sort of done. So we've been fixing a lot of issues. There's roughly about 300 sort of bug fixes that we actually had to actually work on improvements. But essentially, there's a lot of stuff that we've done based on your feedback. So anyone who's got a FileMaker 2024 active subscription contract, a perpetual license with maintenance, or has got a finished goods, will actually be able to actually sort of get. So if you go on a website and if you go under the download resources, or if you go to your ESD, which is your software download page, you'll be able to actually get the latest update for your Mac, for your Windows, and for your Linux. It has a huge stuff, and there's basically a huge amount of updates that we have to talk. So this is what we're actually doing two sessions. So today I'm doing essentially Pro, a bit of stuff on AI, and then Connor and Andy tomorrow will just go a bit more into details on the server side because we've done a lot of work on the server side as well. So I'm going to give you basically some highlights of what we've been working on, what's going to get better for you, and then if anyone's got questions, we can actually sort of go into that.
Do you want the questions in flight or at the end? How do you want the questions? If they're on topic, we'll keep them on topic.
Keep it on topic as I go along. Probably better.
In flight. So this is
Yeah,
your
in flight,
captain
yeah.
speaking. We're going to be serving drinks and peanuts in the aircraft during the flight. All right, good.
So essentially today we're going to focus on Pro. So semantic search is a feature that essentially is everything's created for Pro. It can be used on FileMaker Go, on server or direct, but essentially the way you're going to be creating your script to be able to do semantic search is actually done on your Pro side. So we'll go through that. I'll give you a couple of examples and then get people to actually sort of answer some of the questions. The one thing we've done for 21.1 is basically we've actually certified to be compatible with the latest version of macOS and iOS and iPadOS. We had to wait we wait pretty much every time about 3 to 4 weeks because there's quite a lot of work that we had to do in the background. One of the things that we had to do is use Xcode 16 to be able to actually create the iOS and iPadOS. So we've done some changes. Basically, in order to use FileMaker 21.1, you'll have to use the latest version of the macOS and iOS to be able to actually get it to work. If your machine is too old and you can't upgrade to those latest versions, you can still basically use 21.0.2, which is the version that will work for you. One of the things that we've done, and it's taking a lot of time for us to actually get there, but basically is removing the limits on the data API and OData. Andy will talk more about that tomorrow, but essentially is what we want to get people is to be able to use everything that we provide and remove as much as we can the Claris made blockers that basically were preventing people from using some of the features. So data API is a great system to be able to actually update or replace basically application that could be using the PHP API. So PHP is being deprecated on the macOS level. There's a lot of stuff being actually removed. And if you need to actually create a website that has data-driven system from FileMaker, using data API and a Node.js environment is going to be a lot safer and a lot better to be able to actually use. And the one thing we've realized over the years is we had a lot of customers who were going is, I love the fact that you have data API. I love the fact that you have OData, but you have a data limit on what I can use on a monthly or yearly basis. And that limit, even though it might be big, I have no idea to really control it. So it's going to be too much of a pain for me to actually go into it. And so we're not using it. So by removing limits, we're making it easier for people to start really leveraging the data API and OData protocols that we support in FileMaker. The Open Quickly. So Open Quickly, basically, there was a couple of updates that we've done between the 20 and 21. And Open Quickly, basically, and I'll show you later on, is essentially we've done all the updates that were asked by the community. In terms of when I do a search on Open Quickly, is I want to see more results, but with a better view, so that I can actually make a difference between a file and table occurrence, stuff like that. And the other thing on top of it is to give control to the developer to give access to specific users in the company. So not everyone's got Open Quickly. You can actually control that. And we've done it partly because there was a lot of people that actually sort of were disapproving of what we had before. And we thought, let's just fix it and actually get to work together. HTTPS tunneling, I think Connor will talk more about tomorrow, but essentially is we've actually got it to work for everything. So it's working on the Mac, Windows, Linux, and on the cloud. If you need to use HTTPS tunneling for your organization or for your customers, it's available throughout the system. You can control it through the admin API. It does a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff we've done on the server side. We'll talk about that. And then we've been working essentially on removing a lot of pains that developers have when they're creating solutions within FileMaker. So I'm going to start off basically this is the slide that I showcased when we did the FileMaker 2024. The messaging basically around FileMaker 24 is we do believe that AI is really important. And we want to make sure that you can start using it in your apps where the amount of work that has to be done is not that much. And then you can do it in a way that you don't actually have to rewrite all your scripts. You're basically putting semantic search on top of what you've already done. So you don't actually have to start from recreating all the apps. You can use what you already have, and then you're going to get basically better results in terms of how you do searches for your data. So semantic search basically is a way for you to be able to get better results, better insights from your data. Essentially is with 21.1, you can now do semantic search on images as well as text. So I'll do a quick demo afterwards. But the idea is you kind of have a system where keyword basically tagging is not as important before because you're going to be asking the engine, so the large language model, to actually look at your images. It's going to create what we call the embedding, where it stores information about placements of words for the images, and it's going to start looking at information in that. So when you have an image, and normally you maybe had to actually put a huge amount of keywords inside that, now you can actually talk directly to the image and be able to actually ask specific questions or find specific questions. The other thing on top of it, which is really useful, is because you have this vector that actually represents the image in this like massive 3D environment, you can actually compare images. So you could actually send an image to your FileMaker solution and say, find me other images that actually look the same way. The macOS photo app does that because it's actually built in the system. And the idea is to give you kind of that availability inside your system to be able to actually do that.
There was one question that was kind of in line about this. I know we're talking about AI, but real quick, it came up the other day, and I want to bring this up now. So the Pavel's talking about he still sees the limit in terms of his the DAPI limit, the web limit, and so in order to not see the limit, you're going to need to update the server. Right, that's where you're going to see that. So because Claris has come out with this and they've removed the limit, if you're still using the old software, you're still going to see the limit. You need to be installing and using the new FileMaker server, the 21.1.
So if you don't want to see the limit, you'll have to move on 20.1. But the limit basically is at the contractual level. So essentially is if you have a FileMaker 21 on the subscription, that limit is going to get removed. If you move to 21.1, you're not going to have any issues because there won't be a limit. If you're still on the old version, the system actually has a limit, but because our license server is not going to basically force it, and if you hit the limit, you're going to have to actually call us so that we can actually reset it on your server to license system. So if you want to work without any issues, move to 21.1. But basically, that limit is on the contract itself, not the product that you're using. So if you can still be on 21.0 and that limit was going to be removed, you'll still have maybe some notification saying that you're going to reach that limit eventually, but that basically the contract it doesn't actually limit on that anymore. So go crazy with it. Quickly, basically on the models that we support, we've added a public AI called Cohere, which has a nice feature because it has a free tier that has limits, but basically the limits are kind of nicer than the one you have on OpenAI, because the limit basically is once you're doing basically the creating the embeddings and you're doing through a lot of records, that's where you're gonna have the limits. But if you do it one after the other, you're not gonna have the limit basically sort of stopping you from doing the work. So if you want to try basically Cohere instead of OpenAI, that's the way to do it. Or you can use an open SSM that you can install on any MacBook that has an Apple chip, and it's going to work really nicely. So instead of actually me sort of talking too long, I'm going to basically do a bit of demo to actually just give you an idea of basically what it does and how easy it is to actually sort of use. So this is a database of 25,000 images. The one thing out of this demo that took me the most amount of time was to find a library of images. That's basically the one thing that takes you a amount of time. Installing everything in the background is actually kind of straightforward. So on our great website, we have a document that basically explains to you how to install a OpenLLM on your machine. It's basically, there's a couple of Python script steps that you have to run, but through the terminal, you can actually do pretty much everything. So what I'll do is I'm going to quickly start off my LLM server in the background. So basically is you have a tool that we provide, what you can download called Conda, which basically creates an environment where you're going to have your your large language model running, and then you can actually run it, basically run through a web server on your machine, and it does various stuff. The one thing that you'll see basically on the 21.1 is it's going to download a couple of text embedding models, and it's going to download a couple of image embedding models. And so you can actually use some of them. So now I've got basically my system running. I can actually go into Script Workspace, and I'm going to basically just connect to this local AI so that I can actually do my queries. You don't actually, so if you look running locally, it's going to say you don't actually need an API key. You can actually run it without any security if you want to. And as soon as your machine is closed from the internet, no one's going to be able to actually sort of get it down. So I'm just connecting. So now my machine's connected. So the issue that you have sometimes when you're doing keyword searches is if someone's actually misspelled a name, a description, a keyword, it's really hard to be able to actually find it. So the example that I found on the stuff is one of the photographers actually misspelled kitten in the system. So if I type in kitten, that image will actually never come up. It's spelled properly here, but if I'm looking in the name, I'm never going to be able to actually find that image in the past. With semantic search on images, basically that goes away. So what I did is basically I run all the 25,000 images. It's created this file which has the vector embedding of that image, and I'm basically doing a semantic search, which is this one, where it's basically looking for the text, and I'm going to basically type in the search box here, and it basically gives me the results. The one thing I'm doing on top of it is I'll show you on the side, you'll see there's a custom dialog box going to come up with the list of results, and then what we call the cosine similarity. So basically is how close that image is from the question I'm actually asking. So the first one I'm going to ask, easy, is I'm going to go and ask for kitten. I'm asking it to actually return 25 record out of 25,000. The first search sometimes is a bit slow, but normally it's actually quite quick. And this basically is the result I'm actually getting back from the LLM. So it's basically giving me the record ID and then the similarity, which goes between -1 and 1. So -1 is the complete opposite, and 0 to 1 is basically the stuff that I have.
Yes. Yep. Okay. So let me ask a question here. I'm sure you explained it, but there's a lot going on, and some people might have missed it. So we put the picture of the animal in, and then the keywords that come out, is that the keywords that you have right there that was generated by the AI? Is that generating the keywords there for us?
So those keywords are manually
Yeah,
typed in. So this is the
you
data that's
manually typed
provided.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is the top that was typed in by the photographer. So this is manual work. This is something that was done before the AI. The AI information is in this box, but AI doesn't actually have this file is just numbers. So it's
Yes.
numbers basically with a what we call similarity. So basically, imagine words on a 2D graph with points based on how they look the same. So cat, kitten, dog, animal will be quite close to one another, but then fruit like bananas, space cars, whatever is going to be on the opposite. And
Yep.
so this is how basically the semantic search works. So it's looking for words with a similarity, while at the same time looking at the context and how you're actually asking the questions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
so the one thing you'll run is basically is you're taking a field, which is essentially the image, and then you're telling it to actually create the embedding. So you're sending information to your model. The model is going to create basically this embedding, and actually it's going to give it back. The one that I'm using is called Clip V2. Name doesn't really matter, but it's basically an OpenAI compatible Clip vision model that is multilingual. So when I use the systems, I can actually afterwards do searches in pretty much any languages. So if I look for kitten, but if I look for chaton, which is the French equivalent, it will basically find me vaguely the same result.
That's really, we had a couple live streams on AI and we dug into this and we didn't realize that the models we were using were multilingual, which was really a neat side benefit that
Mm.
I guess we kind of accidentally ran into. So Beverly says, I'm going to insert what she just said. This update allows a container field, parentheses, not just a text field, to be used to create the embedding.
And then you can ask any questions. So basically, you're looking for any like images with a mountain view in the morning. You can do your search, and then it's going to basically give you the result back. Sometimes the quality of the similarity isn't great, but that's because on images, and those images are kind of small. So in terms of pixel size, they're not really big. But if you have really sort of good quality images, it's going to be able to actually give you better similarity. And so basically, pretty much every time you actually do a query around images, you're going to pretty much find what you're actually sort of looking for. Yeah, so give it a try. So the one thing to be sort of careful about is when you're doing your embedding, at first it's actually, so I know that people are basically trying to do sort of semantic search on large solutions. When you have a lot of images, a lot of text, you have to figure out basically how much information you can send at any one time. So the insert embedding on file set will actually do it all the images it's actually currently looking at. So you might do in chunks because otherwise it's going to be too much. There's no way to be able to do chunking of the images. You can do chunking of text, but the image has to be sent. The whole image has to be sent so that the LLM can actually understand it and actually do the work around it. So
Okay, so
if you have huge images, make sure that basically you test it before because it could basically suck up the whole machine.
yeah, so Andy just pointed out something that I was not immediately aware of, and Andy goes, "That is correct. I can do a search with an image of Richard into a database." Well, okay, what he said before that I could do a search of an image, and your search can be another image, right? So if I have a picture of a cat and then we say find all the similar things, and he says that I could do a search for Richard and it would come up with supermodels because I'm so good looking. So yes.
You could, yeah. So you'll basically, what you'll be doing in that case is you would be basically inserting the image into a container field. You would just basically do the insert embeddings. Then you have your embeddings, and then you can say, find me other images with the same personal image, or describe the image, or you could get it to do whatever you want to. So the other thing to mention as well is vector embedding when you have images does take a bit of memory. So it's kind of nice essentially to not have anything running on the side. Because eventually you can actually run it. So my machine's got 16 gigs, so it kind of works nicely. But if you have like 8 gig of RAM, it's sometimes not ideal because it's going to basically, the model is going to eat up all your memory very quickly. So watch out for that, which is why all the latest MacBook from Apple have got 16 gig for AI on a local model, you need kind of a lot of run to be able to actually run properly.
All right, so I have a question here that's a good one. This is from Stukak 1019 on Twitch. He says, are those 25,000 images stored locally?
This is all local. Yeah, this is one file. The file size is 26 gig. So the image is actually stored locally, and then the embedding is stored locally. So you could have the image basically. Those are both containers. So they can be basically used. You can use external storage if you want to. You can have on different machine. Ideally, is the closest they are to your solution, the better it is. So this doesn't take much space. I think the one thing that's taking much is the images. The one thing we've actually noticed is actually having this as storage inside the file sometimes make the whole system a bit quicker. But then it's up to you to decide one or the other. But
Real quick, the question, so the part where I was driving towards, and we have all sorts of people here in this live stream, so I'm gonna bat this one back to you. Douglas is doing a demo on FileMaker Pro because that's the simplest demo and the highest level of reliability in terms of that. But realistically, if you have a solution where you have any money or investment into, your solution needs to be running on FileMaker server, right? And then all these containers would be attached
on the server, yeah,
on the FileMaker server, right? And
yeah,
is there we want them external to the they're not in the FMP12 files. So we have storage, remote storage, but it's basically right
yeah,
next to it, right?
yeah. You can do it that way. So it does make. I mean, the thing is, it's a lot of testing. If you have like a million sort of record with images, then you might want to have the vector embedding container inside the FMP12 because it's actually kind of light and will be quicker to do search. If you're doing it in a way where um, your server has enough speed and your model is running vaguely on the same machine or next to it, then it's going to be quite quick, basically interacting with everything. So
this is for everyone to frame the conversation. Normally, what we say with customers is use FileMaker server. Period.
mm,
Just use it. Or if you want to use Claris FileMaker Cloud, fine, use that. But use that server. Take the containers, make them save externally because almost always that's a better answer. What Doug is saying here, kind of, and I don't want to confuse newer people, he's saying that there might be scenarios where putting the containers internal to the FMP12 file results in a performance improvement. I get nervous with that because suddenly you have FMP12 files that could be really big. It makes your
mm,
backup slower, makes the backups bigger. Um, there's all sorts of potential
could
landmines
be
with
an
that.
issue. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's,
So
yeah,
the
go
one
ahead.
thing to remember is when I'm doing my semantic find, one of the things that you can't do when you're doing FileMaker searches is you can't really control the amount of record that's going to be returned, and you can't really control the quality of the result. Semantic search actually has this built in. So whereas FileMaker sometimes you have a list view, basically it's going to return all the data that you can see on your screen, so potentially up to 50, and you're not going to control the quality of the result. So because with semantic find, you can control that. You could say, well, just return 10 records where the similarity is above 0.7, in which case basically there's going to be less data basically retrieved, which is the one thing that slows down the whole system. The search itself is actually very quick, but sometimes returning the record from the FileMaker server to your client is actually slowing down the thing. So you have more control on the search and how you want actually the result to come back to you.
Okay. So here's a hypothetical, Douglas. I'm going to tee it up. It's a relevant question from one of the live stream people here. So no pressure. No pressure. Okay, here we go. Hot air balloon Ken. We call him hot air balloon Ken because this guy does a lot of hot air balloon events in the United States. And he has a pilot database, which is really interesting. I didn't know that you had to be a pilot to fly a hot air balloon. Him and I go back and forth about what it takes to really fly a helicopter versus a balloon. Never mind. So he has a database with pictures of people who are authorized to fly the balloons. He wants to have them walk in front of some sort of facial recognition thing. And what I'm talking out loud is I'm saying probably a snapshot, hot air balloon Ken, screen grab with monkey bread or something, putting in a container, and then run this process against that. Now that I've said that, Doug Wallis, what is your thoughts about what I just said?
So in that case, I wouldn't use what we have in terms of semantic search. I will use the core ML function that is in FileMaker.
The what function? The
The core ML, so configure with it. So we've had machine learning in FileMaker for quite a few.
Oh, core
Uh,
ML. Sounds like
yeah, core ML.
kernel, like kernel.
So so
Sure.
so
All right. So
if you have a MacBook on Xcode, there is an application called Core ML Creator. I can't remember what it's called. Basically, where you can actually create a model of images to make sure they're the same. And so this is kind of what Apple some sort of uses on the photo side, where you would actually, if you have basically a library of an image of one person, you can create a model of that. So when you insert a new image in the system and you say, how similar is it to the image in my system? It will go, this is Richard, this is Doug, and so on and so on. And this will be easier to actually sort of do because that way the quality is actually better and you know the amount of information that you have. The problem with images basically being searched is the quality of the image has to be really high to be able to actually exactly pick out how you look like on an image versus in front of an iPhone to be able to actually compare those two. So I would rather use the machine learning models that you can do with a Mac versus the AI sort of stuff. Unless you find a embedding model on images that has that you can actually train with your own images to make sure that the image of the people coming to your resort and with the picture you take is actually the same. But it could work, but then you need to actually have exactly, very good image quality when you're taking the image to be able to actually compare it.
yeah, that's the question, right? Because you would have a good image quality for most of it, but then yeah, if you have a crummy camera on the video camera, then yeah, maybe not good enough. Yeah.
And if the guy coming in is wearing glasses or shades or if he's stick whatever,
Oh
maybe
yeah.
so creating your own model basically, and you can actually do it with Xcode quite easily. Will allow you to actually be able to create your properly, your own model with your own image and actually we work a bit better on that.
Hey, I have a question. Andy Lacaze just said something here. He was just kind of stating something, but he said the semantic uh, search compares based on the entire image, its contents of the image. And so the photo, it's not just taking your face, it's taking the fact that
Mm.
Richard's in a helicopter or on the ocean or whatever. And so my question, Doug, would be, is there a model that just focuses on faces? It seems to me that what was just asked for by Ken is not new. This is we've been wanting to do this for a long time. Hell, if you go to the Super Bowl or any big sporting event in the United States, they do facial recognition looking for terrorists. This is already a known thing. So how do we tap into that? Is there a model? Can we get a model for this instead of training one, like a face model or a?
So the thing is, so the way basically face AI work without going too much into your face model is basically it's measuring basically I think 96 points basically across your face.
Hmm,
And that's basically the difference between every point that's actually being measured. Because it has to be very specific. Um,
okay.
it's hard to differentiate, but it's not semantic search because the way it's actually compiling basically your face is that it's measuring the exact distance between points so that when you're looking at an image, it can
Okay.
tell you the quality of it, but it has to be very close.
Okay.
So
So
this is why the core ML model creator on Xcode creates that. It creates basically a proper version of the image that they can see, and so you compare with the others and can say that is one is really close versus the other one not being really close.
yeah, so it's just not semantic search, but I think it's doable.
It,
100
it
million.
is it is doable. The
Yeah.
one thing is basically the problem that you have sometimes with those models is the information that basically the way that the model was built, you don't really know what it's there. So I did an example, which is really crap. I shouldn't actually do it today. But basically, if you type in Donald Trump in this, it has knowledge of information of Donald Trump. And it has keywords again, Donald Trump. So essentially what you're gonna get is something with orange and shitty air. And if you go through it, I'm not gonna go through, but basically that's how it's picking up. I could do camera eyes and I think I'll get some witch stuff as well. So the way the information basically is actually stored is trying to compare context and seeing how it could actually get stuff to actually be kind of close to one to another. So it's kind of sometimes you have to be careful what you want to get out of it, because you're asking it to give you a better result, but you need to actually make sure that it can actually find what you're looking for.
Cool.
And this
All
is
right.
where in the future, anything about fine tuning and then those RAG servers will help you control what the model does and actually help you kind of move forward.
All right. I don't want to
Cool.
spend too much time on this. We want
Yeah,
to
yeah.
keep going because there's other new stuff here.
So let me move on. So basically, this is all the stuff that we have in terms of the script steps and the calculation functions. We haven't changed anything for 21.1. There's going to be new stuff coming out in later versions where the ideally is give you more tools to be able to actually do stuff a lot better. If I go on the pro side, one of the things that we've been working on is how do we get errors when we do like semantic search on LLMs? And one of the things that we do in the background is we kind of transform your natural language query into a SQL query, so to sort of point it kind of really basic. And when we were doing that, there was work that was like, well, when we have errors, when we're actually sort of creating this query, we can't really see what the error is. And so we have this script step, functions actually, the function in FileMaker called execute SQL, where you basically do a query, you have your parameters, and if there was an issue in your query, the only thing you would get if there's an error is the exclamation point. And that was basically all you were getting. What we did basically is to create another one that now is going to give you an error when there's an issue in your query. And it's going to tell you exactly where the issue is, which is kind of nuts. So we couldn't actually put it into the previous execute SQL because we didn't want to actually break any of your scripts because it could do some funny stuff. So we had to create another one on the side so that you basically can actually use it. I'll do a quick demo so that people can actually see what I'm talking about.
Cool. So
So,
Beverly is thumbing up the SQL
so
changes and upgrades.
basically,
Yep.
this is the code that I have. I'm basically saying is find me. So if I basically mistype the table name and I go like this and I save it.
You're
So
good.
basically, before all I had was this error sign. Now basically I get the error sign and I get the error. So it's telling me basically on line 1, character 24, this is information actually missing out. Because people had already created their own sort of loop scripts when there's an error, it does some stuff. We didn't actually want to do it because it would actually just basically create a bug across the whole board. If there's no issue, then basically there's nothing can be being returned. You just get the result of your search. So this is what I call one of our selfish new functions, because essentially we were doing for us, Claris, ahead of developers, but everyone's going to basically be able to actually benefit for that. The other stuff we're working on is basically around the themes. So there was a lot of requests. I don't know how many times I have this query of saying people is your Apex Blue theme is ugly and I don't want to use it. I want to basically use my default theme whenever I create a new layout. And people were basically getting annoyed. I was getting people going, you've got to basically figure out how to actually sort of move around that. So what we did, which is kind of straightforward, is we added basically a new way to be able to actually specifically set up a default theme. So if I go into my layouts, actually if I go into my themes, I'm going to be able to actually decide which one I want. So if I I'll just create a new layout. I won't put anything and I'll use that one, save it, go to my theme. I can basically now say, this is my new default theme, click OK. And whenever I create a new layout, it's going to basically use that new theme. So you can actually have your theme and then you can actually go mental with it. The other thing we did, which was something that we kind of had in the system for ages we didn't do, is if you have the classic theme in memory, even though you're not using it, there is no way to be able to actually delete it. So now with 21.1, if you have an old classic theme, you can actually completely remove your solution. That way you don't actually have this ugly CSS from 20 years ago, basically thing in the back of your system. So two new things that we did on the themes to just make your life a lot easier. Script default. So again, pretty much I think all the script that we had where there was an option to set on and off, everything was set to off, which is kind of a pain. And even for me, sometimes it's crazy when you're creating like demos and you go through why every time I go to record script steps, the exit is always off. Every time I've got to click on it because when I go to the last record, I want basically my loop to stop. I don't want to actually sort of have to do anything after that. So we've done it for I think most of the options where there's an exit or there's an option for on and off. I think there's one or two we haven't done it because we weren't really sure whether people preferred one or the other. And pretty much across the board, this is what you're going to get. One other thing that we did as well, which is more on the server side, which is basically just to make life a lot easier, is you can now run PSOS script directly on the FileMaker script engine on the server. So if you have a script that has a PSOS, instead of actually running it from your FileMaker Pro, you can create a schedule on your FileMaker server and then use that script with that script step inside it, and it's going to work really nicely. Any questions on that? This is something that
About
people are
20
going to,
different questions. I don't know if we have
yeah.
time for them. I mean, when you do a normal installation of FileMaker server, at least when I do, most time I see like 100 PSOSs are preset to allow the FileMaker to server to run before generates an error. And so have you thought about the scenarios where this is going to cause something to behave in an unexpected way on a customer solution?
It's going to create issues when people run everything, all the scripts basically on the server, thinking, well, now that I can actually use this perform script on server, I'm going to basically just get the whole server just do that all the time and actually create schedules to run script whenever. So the same as basically using the FM script engine, you shouldn't actually overdo it. Normally, I mean, I think we put it on default, like run 25 at a time. Because if you go crazy, basically is there is no way to really see what's going on in the background because it just basically runs into on the Draco engine, so you won't be able to actually sort of see what it's doing. So again,
but you would see it spin up because that's a user on the FileMaker server administrative console, right? So the PSOS becomes a user. So if it's running and it calls another one, does it generate another user?
It does generate, if it's calling it out another one, it's going to call another one.
Then suddenly you could have 100 users on your server, but there's only 3 of you in the office. So that could be exciting.
Yeah. Like again, it's basically, it shouldn't improve performance, but like everything, it has to be done with a sense of making sure you're not basically going to kill your solution by going crazy over that. Set revert transaction. I'm not going to really talk too much about it because Korn is going to do great stuff around it, I think on Wednesday. Essentially, based on the feedback that we've been getting from of developers, we are giving you more controls of how to handle errors when you're doing the revert transaction. Before, it would basically just abandon the transaction if there was an error. Now you can actually pick up the error and you can actually control what it does afterwards. So it's giving you basically a lot more control of transactions in your system. And then we've done the other option to be able to skip auto-enter options when you're doing open transaction. So Corn Walker is going to go through that. You'll have a whole hour on that. Should be quite interesting. Layout calculation. So again, layout calculation, people were getting crazy over it because they were like, this is brilliant, we can do a lot of stuff. But there was kind of a lot of stuff sort of missing. So basically a layout calculation is a text that's being evaluated on the layout. So once basically the layout is open and you have your layout calculation, the information in that layout, so the calculation gets evaluated when the layout basically shows up. A couple of things that we had basically is the issue that we had in the past is because it's text and it's not really the calculation engine on the layout, the text being sent to be evaluated about the calculation engine. If you made changes to a table name or table occurrence name, if you were moving from one language to the other, so if you're creating your solution in English, but it's getting used by a German customer, you basically break that layout calculation. So now we've been able to actually sort of get that working. So any changes you'll make to your field names, table names, whether you're moving from language one to another, is actually working properly. And the way we've been able to actually sort of do that is to be able to actually break out the calculation into what we call chunks. So at the same time as we're doing that work, there was a lot of that we're doing for the feature called save a copy as XML, because the save a copy as XML allows you to export a representation of your FileMaker file in XML, where you can actually see everything that it's doing. And this is the tool that's being used by tools like Inspector Pro, FM Perception, Best Element, to be able to actually give you analysis of your file. It tells you if you have fields on a layout that are never used. I mean, it gives you basically all the information about the system. And so what we came out of it basically was to be able to call a new element called DDR info that breaks down basically this calculation into chunks so that you can see exactly what's going on. I'll give you a quick sort of overview what it's doing. So if I go back into that one. So on the script, on the tools, you have save a copy as XML. So when you click on that, there is a new option at the bottom to actually include details for analysis. I'm going to save that quickly. Be really quick to do because there's no information. Just use BB edit. So the way it's basically done, if you've never used it, it creates basically the information for every catalog that we have inside the FileMaker solution. So your fields, your value list, the relations, pretty much everything that you can imagine FileMaker has to do to actually create the stuff. You got your layout. So everything basically is laid out in here. And the way we actually sort of make everything work together is we use like UUIDs. So every object, every piece of a layout actually has a UUID so they can actually be tracked. But if I go to the bottom, so I'll just move that. So we have now this DDR information. So the DDR basically is going to give you a list within the scripts. It's going to give you layouts. It's going to give you basically a list of every script step that's being used in your system. And it's going to give you basically two ID. One ID basically is the ID, it's the UID of that script step in that script. The hash one is basically a change. It's kind of working as a change log. So every time someone's going to modify that script step, whatever the option, the hash key is going to change, which enables the analysis tools in the backend to be able to tell you, hey, by the way, that script step was disabled or that script step was removed. And so that way you can be able to actually track changes being made to your solution through those hash keys. So this is the long journey. Before you have just to give a bit more information on people, this is like the long journey of how at Claris we can provide our users with a proper application lifecycle management system. The biggest issue that we have in FileMaker, and for those who've done for a long time, is when you want to do updates of your solutions or whatever you want to do updates, you have to create your own bespoke weird system to be able to actually sort of do that.
Yep.
So what we're trying to do is basically is create the tools so that we could leverage what's inside the FileMaker to make it easier for people to do application lifecycle management. And so this is basically being used by tools like AutoFMS, Devin. There's a couple of tools actually use that with the upgrade tool and data migration tool and all the other tools to be able to actually create an environment where it's kind of easy to be able to, or easier to figure out who's made changes to a layout and to be able to go, oh, okay, I've done this script and I want to move it to my production, currently copying, pasting, and whatever. It's a bit of a mess. So the idea is to be able to create some environments where it's easier for people to go this is my script on production. I want to have another one for testing. I want to be able to test it, but not on live data, on other data. Once it's been validated, I want to be able to actually sort of go back into my production and replace the other one in the proper systems where everything gets managed.
Yeah, let me just translate for the Margaret. I'm going to translate real quick for the beginning and more intermediate people. This is what we call the Star Trek transporter, right? And so this is the idea. You take a FileMaker FMP12 file, and it's reduced down to this XML that you see in front of you. In an ideal world, it has perfect fidelity. So if you take the FileMaker file, you close it, you say save as XML or whatever, and it creates this. Okay. Then if you wanted to copy a script or a button or a layout, you could highlight that part of the code here. It's text. It's text. It's like code. You could copy it, close this FMP12 file, open another one with a text editor, paste it in there. So that's basically like if I transport you off the planet, right, Margaret? And
Yes.
then I add a third hand in your forehead, and I just copy and paste it. And then I hit rematerialize, and then suddenly there's a hand sticking out of your forehead. That would be kind of hideous. But the idea is that with precision fidelity, this becomes a really big deal because then if you change the script, you press a button, a third party tool grabs that little block of XML, it runs around to wherever it's supposed to go and sticks it in your solution.
Oh,
It's in, see, it's in testing, right? Oh, we're testing it. We're testing, of course, customer testing, different topic, but they test it. Yes, it's good. Press the button and it takes it and rolls out and deploys it. This is huge. Uh, uh, basically solution what we call it lifecycle management, managing from beginning to the application, then maybe someday it gets updated, right? This is huge. We've wanted this. This is awesome.
The one thing to be careful, so like your example of Star Trek with a third hand.
Yes.
So this XML basically is created by how FileMaker knows how to actually do it. There's
Correct.
no documentation that we provide on this XML.
Yeah.
So when you play with this, you could basically insert three third hands on any one face really quick. So the one thing that we're kind of saying is it's kind of easy to be able to actually have two files and then you compare them and then you can actually update one with the other. But playing and messing up with the XML can be dangerous. So always be careful about that.
Yeah, well, the hand could come out of your butt. That wouldn't be
Yeah.
so good, but I get that. That's the warning. Warning. Hands might come out of other places. Yes, I get that.
Are you saying you can now copy chunks and have that work now? I know we've talked about that being
Okay. So I think this is. Didn't I ask you this question last week, or was I ending at? So I asked someone this. This is this done? Okay, I'm teeing up a softball for you, Doug. Here it comes. I'm throwing the ball to you. Is this XML generation done, and is it in perfect fidelity? What is the status of this? Can I take a FMP12 solution and render it out as XML, then have it constitute back in and have it rebuild itself with perfect fidelity, with no errors?
There won't be, so scripts will be fine, tables will be fine. There won't be any accounts because security wise, we wouldn't be able to actually export passwords from local accounts into that. So you can actually have that security side of it.
My impression that this is work in progress. It's not totally done, but it sounds like it's getting better. I'm just trying to figure out how much better it is, I guess is the question. This is a huge deal. This right here changes the world of FileMaker for every developer on the planet.
So this is really getting me. I mean, the type of customers that we have using it quite a lot now are SBAs, solution bundle agreement partners, where they provide solutions for customers. So they build a one solution that we sell to a lot of customers. And when they have to do updates, normally they would do the manual way. Using this with the FileMaker upgrade tool, it basically cuts down by 90% of the work that you have to do. So ideally, basically in the cases is start looking at, so we have the guides that kind of explain what it can do and how you can actually use it with your upgrade tool and stuff like that. If you want to start building basically a way to be able to actually test it, I would say, look at the guides, see basically what it does, play around with it. And one of the things that when we get closer to actually having, I think, documents around it, we'll do webinars and I'll definitely come back with you to do some events to go through it and to go, this is what can be done, this is what's going to work, and this is what stuff you should be looking at. And
yeah, there's a little bit more color here from Andy. He says, yeah, this is still a journey we're on. I'm going to ad lib here a little bit. It's getting better, and we are working closely with our tool partner. There's partners. Most of us are partners, but very few of us really build tools. So like Proof Guys, Beeswax, Goya, Nick Ord down in Australia, they are all build the tools that we use. Claris is really building this for them. And that way they can build an awesome solution that allows us to take, Andy's hand and attach it to his butt as an example. That's kind of a joke, but that's the idea, right? So Inspector Pro, for example, with Vince Milano, absolutely. So the idea though, Margaret, is it cool that you could actually output it as text? You could even go in here and make an edit to a code change and then try to find a way of pushing it back in. This is all, I would say, first steps on the moon. It's like when we went to the moon for the first time, Mark, you made this analogy. We went to the moon, we put two astronauts, or two of them on the moon, and we tried to see if we could kill them. This is 1969, and they came back alive. That's kind of where we're at with this, right? And then there was a commercial years ago about we went back to the moon. What did we do? We took an SUV up there and drove it around, a four-wheeler, electric car on the moon. That was the next step. And so this is steps, but it's a huge deal because everything you have learned about FileMaker and how to build solutions changes with this. This is like ground earth shattering stuff. And I cannot, if I could have explosions going off right now and the fighter jets flying over and the smoke and the whole thing, it's like a big thing. Fireworks going off. This is a big deal.
We have a comment that is new. As
This
a
is-
person new to FileMaker, this is really scary stuff. Are you guys going to do a real-time demo?
Okay, so let me back up. Let me stop. Say, Doug, just give me a second. We're going to go a little late.
Yeah.
Can you go a little late? Are you okay?
Yeah,
Okay. So in the world of File, Doug, can you bring back FileMaker for me, your demo screen? Yeah, thank you. This is FileMaker. Yours probably looks different than this. As a new and intermediate developer, this is what we train on. This is what your solution will look like. It's very simple. What we are saying is a conversation right now, a little bit for more senior people, that when you become a better FileMaker developer and you've studied and you've learned and you're more professional, if you want to do that, the product becomes more from low code to what we call pro code, professional code. Okay. With this kind of capability under the hood to patch a solution, to build a solution and to easily update it, is a pro code kind of thing. And Claris is laying the groundwork for us to make FileMaker even more pro code. This is huge. It really is huge. Now, as a beginning person, if you go back and see the other screen, I hate showing that screen to brand new people because they do exactly what you do. They freak out saying this isn't low code. So I understand, but we're talking to a wide audience here. Margaret, the person running the show, is about an intermediate developer. So she understands what that is, but she doesn't want to go in there and code that.
I wouldn't touch it. It's like,
It's pretty and it could be helpful, but I don't want to touch it.
yeah.
That's what these other solutions are for, to help us with that. So sorry, Doug, I had to kind of.
Yeah, that's cool. So the other thing is, to mention is, depending on the company, I mean, this could be used as well to be able to actually have copies when you're doing changes. So when you're working through your solution, you can do a backup of the whole solution if you want to, if there's a lot of data, like space. But if you just want to basically have a copy of what the file does, save a copy as XML is quite useful, because that way you can export it, save it somewhere else. And if a week down the line, you want to go back to that copy, you can go back to this one, rebuild it, and then you'll have everything sort of stored that way. So there's multiple usage basically that you can do with the XML in the background. Quickly go through if I've got anything else. So the other thing is we did is a new way to be able to constrain a found set. So we've got a new option now to be able to do a find without indexes. So when you have a FileMaker solution that's been there for a long time, you tend to actually end up with a lot of records, big indexes, and sometimes when you're using the constrain found step, it takes a huge amount of time to be able to do it, because even though you're just saying is constrained my new search to what I'm looking at on my, or the result that I have, FileMaker still has to go and look at the whole index for the field or the record you're looking at, for the records you're looking at, and be able to do a search in that index to return all the results, which basically is going to take a bit more time and sometimes can take a huge amount of time. So we've actually given not a new option to be able to do a find without indexes. You have basically a table with 1 million records. You do a first search and you end up with 500 records, and you want to do confound stamp to be able to bring back another 20 of those. Instead of relooking through the 1 million records, you're just doing the search on those 500s with a confound step. So because there's only 500, it doesn't really index. It's going to be a lot quicker to actually work. So it's really when you're having like small or tiny subsets that's going to work. If you've done the search and you have a 500,000 back, it's not going to be useful because then the index is going to be really too big. So it's really when you have like small subset of records you want to go through. A quick thing as well, I think Connor's going to talk about more today, but we have now full OData compliance. So for people that actually don't know what full OData is, it's the replacement of ODBC. So ODBC is when you want to have different databases talking to one another. OData is the Open Data Protocol. It's from Microsoft. It's been there for quite a few years now. And it allows you to actually integrate with other systems in an easy way. If you've never looked at it and you're using ODBC, it might be a good sort of time to actually start looking in it because it's more secure, it gives you more powerful integration. And for large, and even small organization, it could be really useful. And finally, before we start, the open quickly improvements. So based on your feedback, we've done quite a lot of stuff. I'll just get directly into demo mode. It'll be easier to see that way. So in FileMaker 20.1, when you do a query and you do the spotlight open quickly sort of search, the result that you're getting basically weren't really nice. So what we did basically is you do Apple K on your Mac or Command K or Control on the Windows. It's Command K. I can't remember anyway. You can search for everything. So you can search through files, layout, scripts, table occurrences, table. So if I do and I search for name, it's basically going to give me all the fields that have the word name inside it. I've got the current file enabled, so it's only looking for this file. If I had multiple files and I want to disable it, it's going to go for multiple files at the same time. And it's going to find me everywhere I've got that word. So if I do just A, it's going to be easier. It's going to show me all my favorite or recent files that I've looked at. It's going to show me all the layouts that I have, where the letter A is in it. It's going to show me all the scripts. And then it's going to go through the tables, the fields, and at the end, the table occurrences. So if I do staff, they're going to basically be a bit nicer. So staff is going to show me layouts, scripts, tables, and then table occurrences. Because I've got a full access, if I double click on any of those, it's going to go directly to that environment. So if I double click on staff, it will take me directly to the staff table.
What happens when you click on field? It takes you to the field and managed database?
It will take you to the field in the field in my database.
There you go, Margaret. That was your request. She made a video in Wind Engineering about that.
I'm very happy.
If you do open quickly when you're going through the relation graph, it will search through everything basically in that relation graph. So if you have a very messy environment, that is a good way to be able to actually find, and it's going to basically find you all the fields, and then it will show you all the table occurrences and then tables. It's not going to show you any of the scripts. It's only looking basically at the relation graph. So
I love that.
The one thing that people are going to ask is if you have a very, 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 very large graph and you have a specific wording convention, sometimes it's been of an issue. So we're going to try to figure a way to be able to actually kind of help you be able to do the sort. So descending, ascending. And one of the things we're working on as well is if I do photos, currently is you have table occurrences field and whatever, is to maybe have buttons below that so that if you just want to see fields, you'll be able to click on the field icon and only the fields will actually appear. So this will kind of trying to actually play around and see whether we could actually get that.
There's some nice stuff in there. I didn't realize this was going to get so much better. This is good. I was a little skeptical, but I'm like,
Well, I know they added the button so older developers would be less peeved.
Older developers, how dare you?
Would be less peeved about its existence.
Doug, can you do me one quick favor? Pop up the engineering blog. I don't know if you do FileMaker engineering blog. We want to make sure people know about that, right? Because that's.
I'm just going to finish. So on the security side of that, so the open quickly, one of the requests that we had is there was no way for the developer to be able to control whether users could actually have access to open quickly, which is a bit of a problem. So what we did in the advanced settings is allow the privileges to be able to actually turn on and off open quickly for users.
Okay.
So essentially what you're going to have by default, full access, it's got everything. It's got open quickly, it's got everything you need. But data only entry and read only access will have that deactivated. So they won't be able to actually go through and search through all the stuff that you can see. They'll
that
be able
was
to
my
actually
request.
They will be able to define stuff like that. When you create a new privilege set, it's going to have it unticked. So it's up to you to decide whether you want to give access to that file to people. So this is one of the issues that we had people with security that they were asking to actually have that fixed. Because you were so nice, I'm going to basically show you those blogs. Yeah. So if you go to the Claris FileMaker page, we've redesigned the page. You have the overview that has all the sort of latest sort of the stuff that we talk about FileMaker 24. We've created a what's new page where basically we break down all the stuff that we actually sort of brought. So artificial intelligence, a couple of updates on the AI stuff, security stuff. Connor and Andy they're going to talk about that tomorrow. If you go down, you're going to have a list of all the enhancements we've done. So stuff on transactions, you can go through the whole list. The way we've done it as well is breaking it down into sections. So if you want to learn more stuff about artificial intelligence, you have a link to the AI page that we have. This is going to take you to the server release notes directly. So if you just want to see release notes, you can go and, oops, that's not this one. It's this one. You have all the information and you'll be able to actually get. So the idea is to be able to actually drive people to the right area. And at the bottom, you have links to be able to actually get the latest copy of FileMaker. So this is going to take you to the store if your version is, or if you have a outdated version. If you're a customer, this is going to help you get you to your ESD page. And then on the
I like this website. This is much better. Much better.
The other one, I think this one is going to take you to the download page where you can download FileMaker Pro really easily for Mac and Windows, kind of straightforward. In terms of the blogs, so there's quite a few that have been updated. So we've got this new one on Open Quickly, FileMaker in 21.1. So everything that I've talked about is being explained here. Tells you how to get there, what you can do with it. You can read through it. It's kind of useful. It's got all the information you need for that. We have one on HTTP tunneling. This is everything you need to know about what it can do. There's a lot of how to manage it, how to enable it. It goes on and on and on and on. Useful for that. There's another one on working with layout calculation because we did some updates basically recently. So again, you have all the information. You can go through that. And then this is the announcement on community of all the stuff I talked about. But if you never use basically the blog, the engineering blog, basically this is the URL. It's kind of straightforward. You just type in Claris engineering blog on Google, and you'll get all of them. The way we've done it, when we try to actually do a better job, because sometimes when we do updates to a blog entry, we put a date, but it doesn't go at the top. So make sure that you go through, because sometimes you'll see we have like this one on HTTP tunneling. We have 2 blogs, a new one, but this old one was actually dated about a month ago, or big one a month ago. So make sure you can actually go through. We're going to try to figure out a different way to be able to actually make sure that every time a blog is updated, it goes to the top, that people can actually have access to it as quickly as possible.
So wait. So the let's update. I mean, that one right there you're looking at, that's not at the top, but
yeah, we're going to try to actually sort of
you're going to try, not that you've already done this. Okay,
we're going to try. Yeah. If you want more information on the community, we have this page. It has the link to all the release notes for Pro, Server, and Go. It has all the links to the blogs, and then it has 2 events that we're running. So the Claris live sessions that we're doing. We're going to do 2 this one. We're going to do one on November 21st. It's essentially me talking about the stuff that we talked today, and then December 5th, where we're going to have Ronnie Rios and myself, where we'll go more into sort of semantic search and get people to ask questions and then try to answer as much as we can. So if you want more info, if you want more questions or stuff like that, you can actually register and actually come to these events.
There is a question here, last question, I guess, or one of the last questions. Is there a way to constrain the types of results that come up and find quickly? Only layouts or only certain things? Yeah, it looks like there's, well, yes. Once again, you can, if you're an administrator, you can prevent people from getting into it at all, right? Which is kind of nice. If you're a developer, you can limit it to yourself. Then it's up to you to decide what you're looking for, right? But yeah, I think you play with it a little bit. Alex would be great because it's better than it was before with the last version. It's the Open Quickly is much better.
I mean, if you really wanted to actually create your own Open Quickly, you could actually do it using save a copies XML into a AI FileMaker solution, and you could get it to type in whatever you want to do. Actually, find for you.
All right, cool. Douglas, great job. Great job. Great job. Any other questions from anyone? There's a lot of people here.
A lot of questions have been caught by Lacates or Beverly or you. So
Okay. Tomorrow. Andy Lacates and Connor Brock from engineering will be doing awesome server stuff tomorrow. So same time, same station tomorrow. Yes, yes.
all right, everybody, we're happy to have you. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.